There's a relatively old saying that if you repeat a lie over and over again to the point of exhaustion, it will end up becoming reality in one way or another, or at least it will become real in the minds of the people whose heads you've filled with so much talk. Hello, everyone. Awesome, folks. Look, I've noticed that this format, making a video talking about popular lies or effects, Mandela, which many think exists in anime, isn't new. Some channels have already used it. In fact, on my secondary channel, Elka Tilt, I even have a couple of videos where I react to videos with this format. The thing is that luckily, even though I'm not the first or even close to being the first to make a video in this style, I'm glad the topics I'll discuss today haven't already been covered in another similar video. Welcome to part 1 of lies from manga and anime that everyone believes. Yes, this is the first part, because when I started making a list of topics, I instantly knew that a single video was going to be way too short. So, if you like this section and you don't get mad at me for not supporting certain myths or mainstream opinions that personally don't make much sense to me, there will be more parts. As a disclaimer, the video reflects my opinion. What is reality or a lie to me? With fiction, it could be different for you. If you have another point of view, obviously I respect it. The topics we'll cover in this section will have the particularity of being too hegemonic, meaning they're opinions that are taken for granted. So much so that even questioning them makes you look like a complete lunatic in front of everyone. So, welcome to the biggest lies in the world of anime. The second part of Death Note is crap. Death Note is one of the most legendary works in this medium. It's absolutely undeniable no matter who it hurts. It's also a main reason anime has become so popular and mainstream in the past 20 years. When I was younger, the most common thing was that Death Note was the first anime you watched, fully aware that it was an anime. Just to be clear, I'm not saying it was people's first anime ever, because that spot would go to shows like Sakura, Cardcaptor, Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Digimon, Sailor Moon, Saint Seiya, and others. That's why I added the nuance of being aware, because for a kid, everything is just cartoons. They don't really differentiate between Western cartoons and Japanese anime. Death Note remains loved, respected, and remembered, even thousands of years after its release. There's a myth that's half true and half false, and it's very widespread. And that is that Death Note became crap after L died. Or in other words, if you remember, Death Note, even though it only had one season as such, which adapted the entire manga with its own narrative liberties. Still, we can definitely divide it into two very distinct parts. The first, Light versus L, is what made everyone love the series. And then the second part, where Light would face off this time against L's 3 successors, well, 2, because the third, Mellow and Nier. The lie is claiming the first part of Death Note was nearly perfect. That's something I agree with to a certain extent, even though it has some plot holes and mistakes here and there. The truth is that it's insanely enjoyable and super immersive. And, on the other hand, saying that Part 2 is unbearable, skippable, or even droppable, implying that Part 2 is just crap, which isn't true. Well, not entirely. It'd be a lie to say the series didn't decline after L's death, am I right? The dynamic between L and Kira was absolutely cinematic, so immersive that you couldn't take your eyes off the television for even a second. Was it more addictive than anime fight scenes? The second part had issues, though pacing was fine. Here, Light's ego is even higher. If he was arrogant and insufferable with a god complex before, after beating L, the guy acts like Dr. Manhattan, which causes Light to make more mistakes during this part. He's less analytical and calculating than he was earlier, when he actually feared someone like Ryusaki. Here, Light thinks that Mellow and Nier are two ridiculous homunculi of L who have little chance against him. But this is where the second part of the problem comes in. The rivals. Although I don't dislike Mellow and Nier, they lack L's charisma and aura. This might have been fixed if the author focused on one strong successor instead of 3 underdeveloped ones. On top of that, Nier is a serious problem, since this guy feels like he's using hacks. Many of his deductions aren't based on investigative work. Many are just the result of his intuition. The bastard is always right. Even though it's just anime and these things happen, I don't know. Exactly, Death Note doesn't seem to allow for this kind of thing. Then we can get into theories that L actually left the work done for Nier in some way, with leaked information, since L knew early that Light was Kira. Maybe that's why he seemed to predict everything so supernaturally, I don't know. Despite these mistakes, it's a blatant lie to claim the second part was bad or boring. It was also really good, maybe not a 9 like the first one, but definitely a 7. This second part is much better on its own. There are manga and anime that even today a lot of people praise for doing much less and doing it much worse. I won't name names to avoid discomfort, but I'm convinced. It was a fun, intense series that maintained its flow throughout. I really liked the ending. Saying the series declines in quality in its second half is undeniable, but that's a separate issue. In other words, it became boring or bad simply because it didn't match the quality of its first half. Being polite doesn't mean you can't be brave. Watch Death Note to the end. If you haven't done it yet, please do yourself that favor. You can thank me later. Deku is a loser. I know. I'm so late to this that there's almost no point in talking about it. In short, what happened to Deku after Boku no Hero Academia ended? Opinions were very divided. It was an ending that didn't leave anyone indifferent. And whether I personally think it's a good or bad ending, well, I just thought it was meh, pretty average. It did create a snowball effect for the protagonist, Deku. Let's see, do you remember that at the beginning of the video I said that if a lie is repeated a lot, in the end it becomes reality? After Deku's ending, people made many memes about him. Some were fine, like jokes about him working at McDonald's. Even though it's a lie, well, it can be funny the first time you see it. Yeah, there were, on the other hand, others that were in really bad taste, which seemed more like projections from haters than actual jokes. Like the thing about Deku being a cuck and Bakugo being with Uraraka. Very unpleasant and tasteless Netara humor. The thing is that people started spamming so many memes, fan arts, and comments about Deku Cuck, the McDonald's worker. Literally, people actually started to believe it. Just like the Mandela effect. Some people genuinely believed Deku ended up at a McDonald's, got cucked, or was just a loser. Honestly, that's far from the truth. Deku isn't a loser, he accomplished everything. Without going into too much detail, the first thing is that Deku retired due to force majeure because he lost the One for All. As the greatest hero alongside All Might, he became a teacher for aspiring heroes after his achievements, and is remembered as a legendary symbol of peace. That, I believe, is quite different from working at a fast food place. With all due respect to the workers at those places, anyone who earns a living honestly deserves respect. Since they use it derogatorily, I wanted to clarify that. Besides that, Deku becomes a hero again thanks to something his friends give him. He also returns to action to keep saving lives. The whole Uraraka situation was ridiculous, and it became obvious she ended up with Midoriya. The Netara hype began because people claim Uraraka was with Bakugo for years, and there's no illustration. In an extremely weird and far-fetched way, is Bakugo touching Uraraka's butt or something like that? Well, nonsense aside, everyone knows Bakugo is gay. In short, Deku is an absolute winner. He's respected worldwide, an immortal symbol of justice with a great job that he loves. Going back to being a hero again, with friends who care about him a lot, and in a relationship with the woman of his dreams. Friends, if you think this is failing just because he didn't keep One for All or something like that, I don't think you understood the story's message. Could this also be a wake-up call for Deku's fans? After Horikoshi's illustrations were released, many began using the reverse meme. Basically, they claimed Deku was a womanizer who slept around and spread other rumors. Fans who condemn jokes about Deku being a cuck or loser should also oppose jokes suggesting he's a cheating womanizer, that he's out there exposing himself. I don't think being a cheating womanizer makes you more of a Chad than a McDonald's worker. So don't spread lies that go completely against the personality and values of the character you're defending. Deku is himself, not a loser or a real-life Jiraiya. He's simply my knee. One Piece gets good since forever. People have said that the biggest problem with One Piece is its beginning. That it starts off boring. Come on, that it gets good in I don't know which arc, that it gets better in I don't know which episode. Basically, to sum it up, that the first arcs are crap. This lie is spread by the fandom at a kernel level. I mean, it's an idea that's deeply engraved in everyone's subconscious. And I have to say, why do people believe this? First of all, let's see. The first thing is that if you, like me, have watched One Piece up to the point of being up to date with the manga, it's because this work hooked you at some point. It's hard to believe people would watch 250 episodes of an anime they don't enjoy. I'm here to claim that not only is the beginning of One Piece not bad, but it's actually really good, especially if you like adventure stories. The beginning of One Piece is a treat for fans of world building and massive, unknown adventures. One Piece has become more of a shonen fighting anime due to the story's current stage. The truth is that in its beginnings, it was pure adventure with some fights along the way. And the vast, unknown, and dangerous world of One Piece still didn't fully satisfy your excitement. As the story progressed, you want to see more and know more to learn more about this massive and rich world. This anime's beginning is overwhelmingly positive. Right from the start, you notice that you're about to embark on an extremely massive and long adventure, one that's easy to enter but hard to leave. One Piece's early arcs already feature highlights many modern anime envy, beyond its epic and addictive premise. Zoro joining the crew, recruiting Sanji, including his flashback with Red Leg, Chad in the epic showdown between Zoro and Dracula, Mihawk, the eternal son of Cristo Vista, the recruitment of Chopper with everything that happened on the continent. Drune Usopp tries to save his girlfriend from Kuroneko and Namif. As for Nami and Arlong Park, what more can I say? Are you going to tell me that this arc didn't leave you completely hooked? The scene where Nami asks Luffy to save her and he puts Na's hat on her. I'm sorry, I refuse to go along with the false narrative that One Piece starts off bad or boring. I won't even bring up Alabasta since anyone claiming that arc was boring. Look, I'll admit there are some really heavy and boring parts in this anime. But does the current One Piece have that problem too? It's true that Egghead and Elbaf are moving really fast and are cool, but for example, Wano had parts that were so unbearable that I, myself, couldn't stand them for long. One Piece has already been carrying that on its shoulders. But in Alabasta, even though the arcs start out tough, we still had moments like Zoro versus Dazbones. Bro, it's still a legendary fight. One of my all-time favorite manga and anime battles. Sorry, but it's true. Skypiea is so boring it makes you want to jump out the window. And that Water 7 and Enies Lobby were a huge boost in quality for the series. But doesn't the fact that the series improves as the chapters go on somehow imply that everything before was mediocre, bad, or boring? Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm sorry, but no one can return the tears I shed over Sanji's and Nami's past or the epic battles. That's why I'll never accept that One Piece starts off boring, because to me that's just not true. Well guys, I'm sorry, but we've run out of time. I wanted the video to have 6 lies instead of just 3. But honestly, I rambled on too much and I didn't want this video to be excessively long. If you enjoyed the dynamic and format, please support this video. I'll upload more parts since there are many myths and legends in this field. So I more than happy will give my humble opinion about all of them. Bye.